As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more.
Let's talk about Loaded. Loaded is an agency that I think most people have heard of in the gaming space. And they're in the news today or this week because they raised $20 million in funding. So headline here, gaming agency Loaded raises $20 million in funding. I was going to make a joke about, well, now they're loaded. Promotes new CEO. So for those who don't know, they represent a bunch of content creators and streamers. The company's former COO is now CEO, and they've raised people up. So Bridget Davidson's now president of their talent division. They signed streamers Myth, Doublelift, Sidian, they've got some pretty big names in there. I didn't think this was much of a story, guys. What I wanted to get out of this, by the way, and most of the money is from Coral Tree Partners, who I had not heard of. Maybe you guys have. I had not heard. They're not any big name that I know. What you guys make of an agency, which is fundamentally, like, I get gaming's hot, esports is hot, but an agency is fundamentally a pretty limited business, right? Like
it's a services business, right?
It's a service business, right?
You're constrained by how much, it doesn't scale more than, something per head.
That's it. The number of accounts you can manage with the number of people you have. Does anyone think this is maybe the hype gone too far to businesses that maybe don't fit or that aren't scalable? Or do you think, this is I'm just curious what you think of the investment and the space here in general, because 20 million implies a pretty sizable valuation, right? You've got to think the valuation's on the order of 100 million, something like that, or close to it.
It depends how much they sold, right? Like, I think if we're looking at this from a traditional venture prism, then obviously what you were saying, would be correct, and they would be looking for a 10x exit. My guess is maybe this was more like they sold 40% of the business, and maybe it's valuing it just doesn't strike me. It strikes me as more of a private equity investment than a venture investment, and obviously that's just my guess. Maybe curious what you think of that kind of take, because I view this as I agree the number seemed high, but at the same time maybe they're selling a good chunk of the business and the founders just want to take some cash out, and it's a stable business. It's, clearly in a growing good space. And we saw this with CAA and a lot of the talent agencies back in the day, did stuff like that. So I don't know, it starts with a partnership, and then the partners want liquidity. So they get a private equity guy to come in and buy a chunk and buy them out. So I don't know. What do you think about that? Is that off base?
No, I think that's interesting, right? Because the cash flow, I won't say is guaranteed, but it's pretty good cash flow when you have big stars, and that they're at least locked in for whatever the period of contract is, right? So they sign Myth to a 2-year deal. You've got revenue coming from Myth for 2 years or whatever it is. They did say Coral Tree Partners is a private equity firm. Now, sometimes people use that in reference to venture capital also, but you're right, Jeff. It could be more of a, hey, we're buying not even 40, we're buying 60 or 80% of the business or something like that.
The CEO obviously left, so that could be. And I know we're completely speculating now. So, but it did say the COO was becoming the CEO. So.
I was wondering why you didn't use the laugh track, by the way, on Now They're Loaded. Your joke. You could have had everyone laugh you.
I'm too slow. I'm too slow.
Started over.
Yeah. Now they're loaded.
Yeah. I'm watching the viewers drop by the minute. No, I'm kidding. I kind of look at other agencies, the much larger ones, right? Because when we talk about agencies and talent representation in gaming and esports, that's a really small, I think, group of companies that everyone's very familiar with. And if you're of a certain caliber streamer, you know that they're going to be signed to one of 4, maybe 5 different firms, CAA and William and Morris included in that, right? WME included. And then, Loaded obviously well up there. Everyone knows the name. So when I saw this, I think Jeff makes a great point. I didn't think of that. What I would pose to you guys is, well, what is in the representation of this talent that they think is scalable and that much larger, or perhaps Loaded is looking not just to represent these guys in gaming contracts, but 360 type deals where they're getting them into movies, or, we've seen so many gamers in commercials and Super Bowl commercials, but I'm thinking merch, right? And gamers that want, like Dr. Disrespect launching his own game, and other gamers that want to launch or get rev shares off of G Fuel or other products that they're pushing. So when you think of the gamer as really the new, or that new center of popular culture, and then when you think of how musicians were able to take a music career and a music contract and turn that into clothing and liquor and gaming brands and real estate and everything else, I'm just curious where Loaded thinks they can take their talent. And I think that they're trying to grow, not just to represent gamers in gaming, but perhaps to represent more talent outside of gaming, as well as cross-pollinating, or rather finding non-endemic opportunities. So I kind of saw this investment in this raise as, wow, I think they want to really become that next CAA level agency, which will take a long time. But if they're right on that, they will be the go-to gaming agency, and they won't lose clients to CAA anymore. CAA and WME might start losing football or whatever music gaming clients to Loaded in the future. That's kind of the pathway I'm seeing here.
I sincerely hope that's not their strategy. I mean, it would be a monumental error. It would be the dumbest thing they could possibly do. Why would you? When, they've got such a great thing going with gaming. And if you believe gaming's the future of fun, the future of entertainment, which obviously I do, like those stars, and if you can lock up the stars of the gaming world, they're the big stars of tomorrow, right? Like bigger than music, bigger than movie stars, bigger than any of these. Why not create this niche for yourself that is not really a niche even, but where you could be totally dominant, and the other agencies are become irrelevant just as a consequence of gaming becoming dominant, not as a consequence of you trying to spread yourself too thin and be an agent to a linebacker who, like, it's totally different, right, from representing Myth, and totally different brands and totally different activations and completely different thinking around how you build that brand. It would just be such a mistake, I think. And I take your point, Jimmy. I sincerely hope that's not what they're thinking for their own sake.
I just don't think that they have been that dominant in the niche. They are losing that talent to the larger firms. So again, I'm not sure if this is a tinfoil hat, obviously, thought here. And it could not be, they could be doing something else with it. They are losing that talent. So how do you compete? I just don't know.
Dominant was the wrong word in gaming. But, first of all, there's 12,000 talent agents in the gaming world. So you're right. It's very crowded. But in terms of like names that you hear more often repping some of the bigger streamers, we could probably name 5 or 10 that we've all heard that rep bigger streamers, right? You've got like Loaded and Evolved. You've got CAA. You've got, right, there's a handful of bigger names, and they all sort of fit into that bucket. I don't know. If Loaded starts repping, football players, it just, I don't get the fit. If I was a gamer and I'm considering who I want to be repped by, I think I would prefer to be with a specialist, not with, hey, we've got Myth, but we also have like 12 people from the Patriots. Like, what is the fit here? Like,
I think you would go with the specialist or the best in class, right?
True.
They're not going to be the best in class. And when best in class, I mean like the CAA or the world, like
the big brand, the Harvard of talent agencies, right?
Exactly. So I think I would go with that.
All right, guys, let's move on here. Unless there's any other thoughts on this story. Lindsay, you didn't chime in on this one. Do you have thoughts on this before I move on?
She's just coughing, sneezing, whatever.
Sneezing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm glad that Jimmy spoke a lot to this because, to be perfectly honest, I am so bored by news.
Oh my God. Because there's nothing interesting about these businesses. They're literally service businesses that don't create anything. They're glorified middlemen.
Well,
right?
I mean, I don't have that negative of feelings towards them. They certainly serve a function.
Did I take that too far?
Yeah, I don't want to be associated with all that drama, but I just find the news surrounding them like just to be so. I think this whole landscape is different the next 5 or 10 years, and more agency news, yay!
Because middlemen, if you look at any industry, and I've said this before, middlemen get disintermediated, right? It's the natural evolution of industries that middlemen get cut out because eventually the problems are solved with either technology or scale. In other words, like eventually only 1 or 2 giant agencies will win the day because scale matters. They'll have the biggest brand deals. They'll, have the biggest PR muscle, like all of that scale matters when you're signing. And so everything sort of ends up there. So I don't know why we spend anyone spends time talking about these businesses because they end up going away.
You keep putting them in the news cycle. That's why.
To your point though, and probably to end on to your point, Paul, and I'm not going to name the names because it will be easy to trace what agencies these guys left, but I know direct relationship here, at least 3 high profile streamers that left their agencies because they thought they could get the same dollars for themselves. So why would they give away a cut? So
good on them, because if the agency can't prove its value, I don't know why they should exist.